God's chosen ones. Why only the most powerful feel this awakening first? Her hand trembles as she reaches for the mirror, but the reflection doesn't move. Not at first. Her lips part, her name forms in silence, but the face in the glass just stares back, unfamiliar, unwilling, unrecognizable. A whisper cracks through the stillness, soft as breath against glass. You're not dying, you're dissolving. This isn't depression, this isn't burnout. This is identity disintegration, the holy kind. The kind that only happens when heaven rewrites your name without asking your permission. His soul has been aching without cause. If the world has grown too loud, too fast, too fake, and if you've been wondering why even mirrors feel like liars, then maybe you're not falling apart. Maybe you're being unmasked. And if that's true, then this message was written in heaven with your name on it. The day the mirror went silent, the morning Naomi woke up, something felt off. Not wrong, not painful, just eerily still. Her bed felt colder than usual. The birds outside didn't sound like comfort, they sounded like they were warning her. She padded across the room, heart steady but unsure, and looked into the mirror. What stared back wasn't her. Same eyes, same face, same freckles across her cheek, but none of it belonged to the version of her that had gone to bed the night before. It was as if her spirit had outgrown her body overnight, and now her body didn't know how to hold her. She tried brushing her teeth, making her coffee, scrolling her phone, all the ordinary things. But everything that once brought her a sense of routine now felt foreign, disconnected, like she was trespassing in a life she used to recognize. And that's when it hit her, not as a thought, but as a knowing, a frequency, a vibration deep in the chest that made no sound but shook her entire soul. You are no longer who you were, because who you were was never real. It wasn't grief. It wasn't anxiety. It was a holy subtraction. God had removed something from her overnight, and what was left behind was free, was sacred, was hers. She called her sister, no answer. She texted an old friend, no reply. Even her ex, who would have jumped at the chance to reappear, left her message unread. It was like the world around her had sensed the shift and silently agreed. Let her walk alone. She's no longer one of us. Because that's what happens when God begins to awaken the chosen. Not with thunder, not with fire, but with quiet rewiring. He rearranges your identity in silence. He lets you sit in rooms that once knew you and watch yourself disappear from them without a sound. Naomi didn't cry. She didn't run. She just stared into the mirror and whispered, "Then show me who I really am." What followed wasn't a breakdown. It was a slow and sacred unraveling, a release from performance, a rejection of counterfeit peace, a spiritual symptom so subtle it's often misdiagnosed as burnout, when really it's the first tremor of a divine identity waking up from sleep. If you've ever felt this, if you're feeling it now, you're not unraveling, you're remembering, and that means you're not just awakening, you're being chosen. Part 1. The life that no longer fits. Naomi sits in the attic of her childhood home, surrounded by boxes marked college, dreams, Naomi's future. She opens a cracked leather journal, and the smell of old ink and teenage hope hits her like perfume from a stranger. She flips through the pages. I want to change the world. I want to be someone that matters. I want to speak light into darkness. I want to be a voice, not just a name. She reads the words aloud like they belong to someone else. They do. She closes the book and whispers, I don't recognize her anymore. And the silence whispers back, That's because you outgrew the costume they called your life. She once wanted a successful job, a husband, a townhouse, and curated joy. Now those desires feel like borrowed clothes, designed by a culture that never asked what her soul actually needed. She picks up a photo, her and her ex at a fundraising gala, smiling in coordinated black and gold. Everyone said she looked radiant. But she remembers, she'd cried in the bathroom 5 minutes before the photo was taken, not from sadness, but from numbness, from the ache of performing a self that no longer existed. God, she whispers, why does everything I prayed for now feel wrong? And the answer comes, not in thunder, but a slow swell in her chest. Because I never anointed that version of you. Allowed it, but I didn't ordain it. Naomi presses her hand to her chest. Something stirring. Not pain, not joy. Something sacred? She suddenly understands. This is not depression. This is a divine eviction notice. Heaven has removed her from the identity she built, because she was never meant to live inside it forever. You don't need to burn your old life, the Spirit whispers. You just need to stop trying to wear it. Because chosen ones don't always lose everything in a storm. Sometimes they just wake up one morning and realize the job doesn't fit. The relationship feels stale. The applause sounds hollow. The version of them everyone celebrated was never their true self. Naomi walks down the stairs and looks around the house. It's still hers, but it's no longer home, because when God begins to shift you, your old life doesn't get destroyed. It just becomes too small. This is the divine disrobing, where your old life doesn't break violently. It simply stops answering you. Your calendar still fills. Your body still functions. Your friends still text. But you are no longer there. Because the first symptom of true awakening is when the life you built starts feeling like a stranger you used to love. Part 2. When people start sounding like noise. The voices around her are warm, familiar. They talk about new babies, new kitchens, their latest wine club adventures. They smile, they clink glasses. Naomi smiles too, but it feels like she's borrowing someone else's mouth. She nods at all the right moments. She laughs when they laugh, but the sound rings hollow inside her chest. It's like watching a movie you used to love, but now you know all the dialogue and none of it stirs you anymore. Are you okay, Naomi? One of them asks, breaking through the noise. She nods. Yes, just tired. But the truth is deeper. She's not tired of the conversation. She's tired of pretending it feeds her. She reaches for her water, and that's when she sees him. Outside the cafe window, a man, wrapped in an old coat, sitting on the bench, his eyes locked on her through the glass. He doesn't ask for anything. He just looks with an intensity that silences everything around her. The laughter fades. The clinking glasses fade. Even the music becomes distant. And for a brief second, it's just Naomi and the man. No one else notices him, but he notices her. She excuses herself, walks outside. "Hi," she says, unsure why her feet carried her to him. He looks at her, calm, weathered, strangely radiant. "You don't belong in there anymore," he says. "Their words, they don't fit your frequency." She stares. "Who are you?" "A messenger," he says, "sent to remind you, this loneliness isn't punishment. It's realignment." Naomi wants to cry, not from sadness, from recognition that people inside weren't bad. They were just vibrating at a rhythm her spirit could no longer dance to. When God begins shifting you, he doesn't just remove you from places. tunes you from people. It doesn't always happen through betrayal or drama, or sometimes it happens quietly, like trying to tune a radio station that no longer exists. Their voices become noise. Their values feel foreign. Their version of fun feels exhausting. It's not because you're better. It's because you're being recalibrated. As Naomi returns to the cafe, she knows something holy just occurred. She doesn't rejoin the table. She just stands there, watching her old life talk without her. Not in anger, not in pain, in peace. Because when the noise of the world no longer distracts you, it's proof your soul is beginning to hear heaven again. Part 3. The world became too loud. It should have been a normal errand. Paper towels, toothpaste, nothing deep, nothing divine. But halfway through the store, Naomi stops cold. It hits all at once. The overhead music feels too fast. The lights buzz louder than they should. A stranger's perfume slices through the air like a blade. Even her heartbeat, steady seconds ago, now pounds like a warning drum. She clutches her cart, her breathing shortens. It's not panic, it's overload. The world has become too loud, and she no longer has the spiritual insulation to ignore it. Naomi closes her eyes, tries to center, but the noise doesn't stop. Every person she passes carries something. Grief, stress, bitterness, and she feels it all. It's not her pain, but it's in her, and that's when the tears start to rise. Not from fear, but from spiritual saturation. She leaves her cart, heads toward the exit. Her hands tremble, her vision blurs. "You okay, honey?" a soft voice asks. It's the cashier, older, kind. Her name tag says Maria. Her eyes say she's seen this before. Naomi nods. Just too much. Maria doesn't press. Instead, she whispers. Chosen ones always feel the world deeper. That's why God walks closer. Naomi steps outside into the air, cold, quiet, still. Then, just as she exhales, a small hand touches hers. She looks down. A little girl, maybe 5, stands holding a toy lamb. "You feel like God," she says. As just like that, the noise falls away. Amy crouches. "What did you say?" The girl shrugs, smiles, skips off toward her mother. And Naomi, still kneeling in the parking lot, weeps, because she knows what just happened wasn't random. That child wasn't guessing. She was recognizing. When you're a chosen one, your body becomes a vessel of spiritual frequency. That's why bright lights hurt, why crowds drain you, why music feels like a sermon or a sword. You don't just see, you feel, you absorb, you discern, you awaken. And in a society addicted to overstimulation, this sensitivity can feel like a curse. But it isn't. It's a calling to feel what others fear and still stay open. Back in her car, Naomi doesn't drive away. She sits in stillness. No music, no phone, just breath, just presence. Because that's what her soul needs now. Not productivity, not performance, just peace. "You're not broken," she whispers to herself. "You're just too awake to pretend anymore." Part 4. Solitude became holy ground. She didn't plan to escape. She just couldn't bear another crowded room filled with shallow words and shallow breathing. So Naomi booked a cabin she found on a quiet listing site. No reviews, no photos. Just a simple promise. No distractions. Just stillness. When she arrived, the silence greeted her like a long-lost friend. No one to impress. No one to decode. just whined through pine, just the crackle of branches beneath deer feet. Just her and God. She tried to busy herself at first. Books, snacks, old music, but everything felt too noisy. So she sat, wrapped in an old quilt. The fire pit sat cold, waiting. She hadn't prayed in days, not with words at least, but something inside her began to break open. Not a wound. Very well. Flashback, her grandmother's voice. Baby, stillness ain't empty, it's where God puts the loudest answers. Naomi stares into the firewood. Strikes a match, nothing. Strikes another. The wind snuffs it out. And then she does something strange. She closes her eyes and surrenders. Not just the fire, but the fear, the confusion, the loneliness that's been whispering, "No one gets you anymore." She whispers, "God, if you're in this quiet, I'm done running from it." The final match flares, and the fire takes. Just like that. When chosen ones start craving solitude, it's not isolation. It's invitation. The world tells you that being alone means something is wrong, but heaven uses solitude as a sanctuary, because when everyone else's voice fades, that's when you finally hear your own. And under that, you hear his, yours. Your finger. That night Naomi dreams, not of events, not of visions, but of stillness wrapped around her like a robe. A sentence wakes her at 3:17 a.m. Clear, loud, holy. Stillness is where I restore my warriors. She sits up in bed, not afraid, just awake, more awake than she's ever been, because the silence didn't empty her. It refilled her. Most fear silence because they confuse it with absence. But chosen ones know the truth. When God really wants to speak to you, he turns down every other volume but his own. And when the world becomes too much, solitude isn't punishment. It's where the assignment gets downloaded. Part 5. You can't pretend anymore. She didn't plan to speak. She just came to sit in the back row, to worship in the shadows. But when the guest speaker cancelled last minute, Pastor Elijah looked out into the crowd, and his eyes found hers. "Naomi," he said, "I think tonight God has something for you to say." The room fell still. Her hands trembled, but her spirit, still as glass. She walked to the pulpit slowly, not out of pride, but obedience. And the moment she touched the microphone, she couldn't fake it anymore. Not her voice, not her posture, not her story, the version of her that used to curate every sentence. Gone. What came out wasn't a speech. It was a surge. She didn't quote verses. She became one. She didn't perform a testimony. She released one. "I used to chase applause," she said, "but applause can't resurrect you when your spirit is dead. I used to pray for blessings I wasn't built to carry, but God stripped me because he knew I was wearing a lie." Some people stared in confusion, or sat stunned. And a few wept, not because of her words, but because something in their own soul recognized the sound of truth. This is the final layer of the chosen one's awakening. Not glowing, not floating, but refusing to pretend anymore. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. You stop nodding along to lies. You stop faking smiles to maintain fake peace. You don't become rude. You become real. And your realness? It disrupts rooms. It rearranges atmospheres. It convicts without speaking a word, because once heaven rewrites your identity, even your silence becomes prophetic. After the service, a woman pulls Naomi aside. "I don't know what you did up there," she says, voice shaking, "but my daughter was going to end her life tonight. She said she felt something shift. She's still here because of you." Naomi's eyes fill with tears, not from pride, from awe, because this was never about her gift. It was about her yes. When you reach this layer, the world can't buy you. Religion can't box you. Fear can't silence you. Because when you stop pretending, you become untouchable in the realm of the spirit. You become a mirror, not of ego, not of identity, but of God. When you stop pretending, heaven starts moving. Maybe you thought you were breaking down. Maybe you thought something was wrong with you. But let me whisper this to your soul. You're not collapsing. You're shedding. That old version of you, the one that hustled for approval, that said yes to stay liked, that tolerated spiritual noise just to feel normal, is gone. And in its place, a mirror, a fire, a warrior cloaked in silence and anointed in solitude. The final symptom of awakening is authenticity that can't be undone. It doesn't shout. It doesn't beg to be believed. It simply exists, and the world around it has no choice but to adjust. You no longer belong to systems, titles, or timelines. You belong to God. And when He awakens you, He doesn't just give you purpose. He gives you permission to stop pretending. You become the prayer you once whispered, the sign someone else was begging God to send. So if your old life no longer fits, if mirrors feel like liars, if small talk makes your spirit ache, if you crave silence more than applause, you're not crazy, you're not broken, you're one of the rare ones. You're one of God's chosen, and the world will never feel the same again because you are no longer asleep. If this story echoed something buried in your spirit, if you felt seen, even for a moment, comment below. I can't pretend anymore. Oh, this awakening is mine, because when the chosen ones speak, heaven leans in. And if this message carried you, subscribe not just to this channel but to the mission, because the next story will go even deeper. And if you believe this mission matters, share it. Someone's soul is waiting to wake up through your obedience. Maybe God didn't choose you to be understood. Maybe He chose you to be unmistakable. And that, beloved, is why your old life couldn't hold you anymore. You were never made to fit in. You were made to carry the sound of heaven.